Welcome to Mr. Biz Radio, biz talk for biz owners. If you're ready to stop faking the funk and take your business onward and upward, this show is for you. And now, here's Mr. Biz, Ken Wentworth.
All right, welcome to another episode of Mr. Biz Radio with me, Mr. Biz, Ken Wentworth. And this week, we're going to talk about something literally, I can't believe this. We haven't really even, we've scratched the surface on this topic maybe a couple times in some different episodes on the almost 7 years we've been doing the show now. But we've never had an expert on to talk through some of the specifics we're going to talk about licensing products, about patents, about intellectual property type things. And again, we talked a little bit about intellectual property when we've had some attorneys on, but nothing like, we've definitely never talked about licensing products. And I'm very intrigued to find out myself, selfishly. I'm going to learn a lot. I'm sure I'll be taking a lot of notes here. And we have a preeminent expert in the space this week, as we always seek to have. Stephen Key is considered one of the world's leading experts on product licensing and intellectual property strategy from a business perspective. He has had a very successful career developing products and licensing them. He loves to share his vast knowledge on the subject. He loves showing ordinary people how they can transform their ideas into tangible products that are found in stores. Welcome, Stephen Key, to Mr. Biz Radio.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, looking forward to this. Like I said, even selfishly, I mean, you know, I'm sure the listeners and viewers are going to get a lot out of this, but I know I'm going to learn a lot as well, so I'm looking forward to it. But before we start diving into some of those tips you have and digging into some of the details on that, tell us a little bit, Stephen, about your entrepreneurial journey.
Well, I guess I'm a lot like a lot of people. I have ideas and I wanted to be creative and I wanted to make a living being creative with my ideas. So I found a way to rent my ideas to companies. And if they like my ideas, they take those ideas to market for me and they pay me a royalty for each and every one they sell. So I get to leverage the power of these big companies that are already in business where I don't have to do all the heavy lifting, Ken.
Yeah, well, I mean, so take us back a little bit, Stephen. So how did you even sort of get going into this space within the business world?
Well, I was studying economics as a young man. I didn't like it. I took an art class by mistake, and I ended up just loving working with my hands. And I went home and I told my dad I want to be an artist. And he was like, really? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, do you like to draw? And I said, well, no. And he goes, well, do you like to paint? And I said, no. So he gave me permission to jump off the ledge. So I transferred over to another school and I started taking art classes. And I realized really quite quickly that I wasn't going to be this great artist. So what I did, I combined a little bit of the business knowledge that I obtained and a little bit of the art. And I started making things and selling those things at wine festivals and state fairs and county fairs. And I realized I really love to make things that people really want. And by accident, I was reading the paper on a Sunday morning about the startup company called Worlds of Wonder. And they were creating the first talking teddy bear. And I went down there, knocked on the door, and I said, you guys need me. And they hired me. And that's when I learned all about licensing, where I could take some of my work and show it to companies and they could take it to market for me. So that's how it all started.
Interesting. So I can imagine the conversation with your dad going from econ to art. I mean, that's quite a shift, Stephen.
He told me one thing that was really important. He said, look, if you find something you truly love to do, you'll probably never work a day in your life. So he gave me permission to be brave, and I took it. And he was right. I love what I do, and I'm going to keep doing it, and it's enjoyable. Yeah.
Well, kudos to your dad, because I know a lot of parents probably wouldn't have that same reaction, and depending on how, you know, strict and old school they were, you know, to allow you that freedom to choose what you want. I mean, I had the same type of conversation. It wasn't quite the same drastic change, but with one of our daughters, and she wanted to change things. And her mom was balking. And I said, look, do you want her to do you want her to have a degree in what you want her to have, or what she wants, right? Big difference. And your career trajectory, your career happiness and everything like that, it's going to be drastically different, right? I mean, you don't want to get a degree you don't use and all that kind of stuff. So Yeah, I mean, so again, kudos to your dad for allowing you to follow that passion.
Well, he loved what he was doing, and he knew how important that was. So he gave me permission. Now, he didn't know how I was going to achieve those goals, though. But it took me a few years. But I learned with this startup company, Worlds of Wonder, how I could leverage my creativity, find those companies that are looking for ideas from people like us, and then show those companies my ideas. And it worked beautifully. And they took them, and I collected royalties from some of those simple ideas I came up with.
So from Worlds of Wonder, what happened after that?
Well, I was over I was in Hong Kong. I was in China on the production line of Teddy Ruxpin, the first talking teddy bear. Mm-hmm. And I realized that the inventor of Teddy Ruxpin, he wasn't there. That's when it dawned on me, I need to quit. I want to come up with ideas, and I don't want to work on anybody else's ideas. So I quit. I went back and said, look, I'm done, and started my own little company. I moved to a small town in California, Modesto, and the first idea that I licensed was a simple indoor basketball game. These Nerf indoor basketball games, the backboards are square. And at the time, I was a big Michael Jordan fan. So I took a poster of Michael Jordan, put it on the backboard, and now the backboard, the shape of it changed. It was in the shape of Michael Jordan. And I showed it to a company, Ohio Art. They loved it, and it sold for over 10 years. I collected royalties, and it was on TV. So that was really my first idea I licensed.
Oh, wow. Well, that was a big one.
It surprised me, actually. I remember showing it to my wife. I had met my wife at Worlds of Wonder. She was a product manager, and I showed it to her, and I said, Janice, what do you think about this idea? Because I fell in love with it. And she said, Steve, the chances of you licensing that idea are probably 1 in a million. So I did what every inventor does. I sent it off to the company anyway. And 3 days later, I had a contract, and it sold for over 10 years. Yeah.
Wow. Now, so was this like early 90s-ish, mid-90s?
Yes, you're right. It was early 90s, and I was surprised it sold for so many years. It was in every major retailer. There was even a little commercial with Michael Jordan, and he would look at the camera and shoot the little Nerf ball. It would go in, and he would look at the camera, and he would say, the best looking backboard I've ever seen. So, yeah.
No, I was just guessing that timing, because that's, the height of his popularity. The Bulls are winning championships year after year and during that time. And so it doesn't surprise me. I mean, he's still an endearing figure to this day. Obviously not hasn't been playing for quite some time, but I can only imagine. I mean, that Bulls team, especially him, was so popular back then. With everyone likes a winner, right? So I can imagine how many items that thing sold.
I was a big fan. I still am.
Right. Of course you are. Well, guys, we're talking this week with Mr. Stephen Key. You can find out more at his website, and we'll put this in the show notes as well, but inventright.com. He's got a YouTube channel. You can follow him on LinkedIn as well as on Facebook. We're going to come back. We're going to hit a break here. We're going to come back, give the Mr. Biz tip of the week, and then we're going to talk about his company, InventRight, sort of how it got started, why he started it. We got into that a little bit here. And then how he helps people. So we're going to talk through that. And then, of course, we're going to pick his brain a bit later in the show to give us some tips on licensing and things like that, when to consider it, and some initial critical steps. So come back on Mr. Biz Radio.
If you would like to reach hundreds of thousands of business owners every week, Mr. Biz Radio can help. Our show airs globally 7 days a week for more than 25 hours across several internet radio stations, plus 20 plus podcast platforms. Also, video exposure on the new exclusive Mr. Biz Network streaming channel, which gets blasted to 100 plus streaming platforms, and the Mr. Biz YouTube channel, and our 350,000 social media followers multiple times every week. Join Mr. Biz Nation as an advertiser by emailing us at info@MrBizSolutions.com.
Attention, Mr. Biz Nation. We have an exclusive offer just for you. Get lifetime access to Scarcity Countdown timers and Logic links for only $69. Yes, you heard it right. Only $69. These tools will add urgency to your email campaigns and website pages, helping you increase conversions, sales, and capture more leads. Don't miss this incredible opportunity. Visit GetPulseTools.com now and take your business to new heights.
Got a question for Mr. Biz you want answered on air? Email it to info@MrBizSolutions.com. Now, once again, here's Mr. Biz.
All right, welcome back, show. It is time, as always, for the Mr. Biz tip of the week. And this one actually, oddly enough, kind of ties into a little bit what we talked about in the first segment with Stephen. If you aren't willing to take the risk, you are likely willing to accept mediocrity. We talked about that with Stephen and taking the leap, going from his econ major into art and, not knowing how the heck he was going to make that happen and do all that. He took a big risk. And had he not done that and stayed the course on the econ, he probably would be not as happy in his career. So that is the tip this week. And we're going to get back into talking with Stephen here. So Stephen, tell us a little bit about InventRight. So you leave the corporate world, so to speak, start your InventRight company. Tell us a little bit about InventRight and how it got started.
Well, thank you. Well, I moved to that small town in California, Modesto, and I started coming up with ideas and licensing those ideas to companies. And I was just having a really good time doing it. One of my friends said, Steve, these inventors, they gather. And I was like, what do you mean they gather? Well, they get together once a month. Why don't we go to one of these events, and why don't you bring some of the things that you have licensed and share those products with these inventors? So I went there, and I was kind of surprised that they were doing things a little bit differently. My success, I wouldn't say it was easy, but it wasn't that hard. And I wasn't spending a lot of money and time. And I had this process that just worked. So I shared my ideas with this group of inventors, and I realized, maybe I should talk a little bit more about this. So I started sharing that knowledge, going to certain events, and I realized very quickly, I met my partner, Andrew Krause, because he was running that event. And he said, Steve, why don't we start a company and let's call it InventRight, because everybody's inventing wrong. And that was 24 years ago. And what I've been doing is sharing that knowledge through the YouTube channel and then through books and articles of just helping anybody with an idea, how they can commercialize it through this process called licensing. So that's how it all started.
So let me ask, this is probably going to be a very neophyte question, but I'm learning here. At what point does a patent come into the mix with licensing? Are those sort of one follows the other, or not necessarily?
Well, that's a great question, because I think a lot of people, they think the first thing I need to do is file a patent because that's what they've heard. Well, I didn't know anything about patents when I first started. I was licensing kind of simple ideas that didn't require patents. And there's many industries that are just looking for ideas. The reason why they don't require patents is because the lifespan of most products is fairly short. So I didn't know anything about it. And one day I came up with this one idea, and I showed it to a very large company. It was a packaging company. And I had read an article how there's never enough information on labels. So I came up with this very clever idea of how to put more information on labels. And I sent it to a very large pharmaceutical company. And the first thing they said when I called them was, Steve, this is brilliant. Do you have a patent on this?
I can imagine, especially in the pharmaceutical world, right? Patents are huge on that side of the fence.
Well, they are. And I didn't know what to say. I kind of panicked. So I quickly got off the phone and started to investigate, what's a patent? And I called a good friend of mine that referred this patent attorney to me. And I started worrying about patents. It's like, this is crazy. What is this? And I learned very quickly that in some industries, patents can be important. Not in all industries, but some they can. And I started learning quite a bit about the patenting process. And I do write quite a bit on it, because I don't think you need a patent on every idea. They are expensive. They're not required. I like to talk a little bit about what people need. They need a provisional patent application. It's called a PPA before they file a regular patent, because it does get very expensive and very time consuming too. So that was my first introduction to what is a patent, and do I really need one?
So tell me, so you mentioned they're expensive. I'm sure it varies, but about how expensive are they? What do they cost? And what's the time frame for obtaining one typically?
Well, they can run anywhere from $10,000 to $25,000 a patent. And most patents don't recoup the cost it takes to file them. So there's the big, why not, Steve? What do you mean? Well, for me, my perspective, it's really about, do I have an idea that someone really wants first? And so I'm all about, why don't we investigate to see if your idea is marketable, is licensable? And we can do that by filing a provisional patent application. And that's very affordable. You can do it yourself, and it's really easy to do. So it's really all about determining, should I file one? Why don't I test the market first and let the market tell me if I need one? So I like to tell everybody, just take a deep breath, relax, you'll be fine. Do as much homework as you can on intellectual property. Don't file a patent because you're fearful or you're watching maybe some TV show that's telling you need to file them. Just get good information. And if you need to file a patent, do some homework, because it is very expensive and time consuming. Yes.
Yeah. What's the typical, again, I'm sure it varies, but what's the typical time frame from beginning to end of obtaining a patent?
Oh, well, it's actually gotten a little quicker over the years. It used to take years. You can file a provisional patent application that will give you patent pending status for 1 year. Within that 1 year, if you want to go forward with a non-provisional, which is like a real patent, you can start that process then. So once you file that non-provisional patent application, it takes about 18 months for the USPTO, that's the United States Patent and Trademark Office, to get back to you to look at your application and start to examine it. And that takes a little while too. But overall, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years. Yeah, fairly fast, really. Or what you can do, there is a highway that you could apply for. It's a way to get your patent issued a little quicker. You're going to pay a little bit more money, and you can get that probably issued within a year if you want to spend a little bit more money.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, my only experience really in that side of the world is I actually got the trademark for Mr. Biz.
Okay.
And going through that, IP process, obviously different than the patent process, but it did take us a while because we went out and researched. First of all, I tried to do it on my own, and I got rejected.
Of course.
So I'm like, well, let me get an expert here. So then I got an IP attorney to help me, and of course, she just knocked the ball out of the park, and we were successful. I initially got rejected because there was someone who had the trademark of Mrs. Biz. Oh. And they said, and it was in a similar line of work that I do. So they said it would be too confusing to consumers. So they rejected it. Well, my IP attorney went out and looked and said, did a bunch of research. So this woman hasn't used this trademark in years, and it's about to expire. So let's wait a little bit, see if she does it, and we'll refile after hers expires. And so we went through that process, and thankfully we're successful and all that good stuff. But so that's my only experience really with it. But interesting side of things. So again, guys, this week we're talking with Mr. Stephen Key. You can find out more at his website, inventright.com. That's inventright.com. You can check out his YouTube channel, LinkedIn, and Facebook. We'll come back. We're going to get some tips from Stephen on licensing.
How would you like to have direct access to Mr. Biz to help you run your business more profitably and more efficiently? At MrBizSolutions.com, you get live access to not only Mr. Biz, but also several of his hand-picked and trusted business experts, each with 20 plus years of experience to help you optimally manage and grow your business. That's just the start of where Mr. Biz Solutions begins. Learn more at MrBizSolutions.com. That's MrBizSolutions.com.
Attention, Mr. Biz Nation. We have an exclusive offer just for you. Get lifetime access to Scarcity Countdown timers and logic links for only $69. Yes, you heard it right, only $69. These tools will add urgency to your email campaigns and website pages, helping you increase conversions, sales, and capture more leads. Don't miss this incredible opportunity. Visit GetPulseTools.com now and take your business to new heights.
Check out all 3 of Mr. Biz's best-selling books at MrBizBooks.com. Now, once again, here's Mr. Biz.
All right, welcome back to the show. Let's dig in here, Stephen. I got a lot of questions, but I want to start with to get some tips from you on licensing. But I guess really where I would start is when should someone out there that's listening or watching the show and they say, "Man, when should I even consider licensing?" Well, let's start with that.
Well, first of all, you have 2 options. If you have an idea, you have a product idea, you can either venture, which means that you're going to start a company, raise money, do all the marketing, the manufacturing. You're going to do everything. That's venturing. That's a very typical method for someone to commercialize one of their ideas. Licensing is very, very different. What we're going to do, we're going to come up with a great idea that we think a company might need or might want, reach out to that company to make sure they want to work with us inventors, make sure they're inventor friendly. And then we're going to show them our idea. Now, how do you do that? Well, we like to use what we call a sell sheet. It's a 1-page advertisement of what your product is and the benefits of your product to their particular consumer. It's just a 1-page advertisement. At the very top, there'll be a 1-line benefit statement. Why would anybody even care? A big picture of your product idea. It could be a photograph, it could be a prototype, it could be a 3D computer generated prototype, a virtual prototype, and then some of the benefits. That's a 1-page sell sheet. You might even do a one-minute video showing someone use it. Those are great tools. So it's really quite simple, but you have to find those companies that have embraced this concept called open innovation, meaning they want to work with us inventors. They're looking for ideas outside their walls, and those are the companies we want to find and then show them our great ideas. But here's the catch. You have to make sure that those companies are the right companies for your product. A lot of people make that mistake. It has to be a good fit. Also ask them, do you take outside submissions? That's very easy. And before you submit anything to a company, do a little bit of homework on them and file a provisional patent application to give you patent pending status.
Yeah, that's what was my next question is there a risk? Is it, that you would show your idea to a company and they go, "No, Stephen, we're not interested in that." And then you find out 6 months later, you see your product that they've developed it.
Well, there's always a little bit of risk, but I think if you look at the history of the company, look at the reviews, see how they treat their customers, ask them if they work with inventors. And you can do a little bit of homework up front. If they don't, they will most likely tell you. So just do a little bit of homework, see if they've worked with other inventors, go on the internet, type in complaints, things like that, and just do a little bit of homework first. Your best protection is finding companies that want to work with you.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So what does a typical, again, I know there's some very broad question. I'm sure they're all very different, but generally speaking, what does a licensing deal look like?
Well, it's actually a licensing agreement. It's a document, it's a contract, and it states kind of what do you own. It states that how you're going to work together. It has a royalty rate, and that's going to come off the wholesale price. It's usually 5%. It's pretty standard. It's going to talk about what's really important here. Let's really nail it. What's really important is the minimum guarantees that they're going to take it, your product, and each year they're going to pay you a certain amount that's guaranteed. If not, you get the product back. That kind of protects you if they sit on it or maybe they lose interest, but that way that company's going forward with your product idea. So it's just basically a contract where they're going to perform and pay you a royalty on each and every one they sell.
Okay. You said 5% is typically the standard. When does it go above or below that?
Well, if it's a consumable, meaning if it's a product that's going to be used every single day, it could be a little bit lower, depends on the volumes. If it's a product that has a large profit margin in there, it might be a little bit higher, maybe 7 or 8. If you have an issued patent, it could be a little bit higher, maybe 9, maybe. It never usually gets above 10%. That's a lot, right? So it's usually about 5%. It can vary a little bit either way. Sure.
So Stephen, with yourself at least, do you typically look to, invent products that are kind of in the same realm? So maybe you're targeting the same companies over and over with different ideas?
That's really a great question. When I first started out, I started out in the novelty gift industry, which there's a big demand. Products go in and out of the market really quickly. So that was really fun to do. No intellectual property or patents were required. And then I moved into the toy industry, which has a little bit longer lifespan. And then I eventually went into the packaging industry. I had a toy that was selling in all the Disney theme parks and stores around the world. And that same toy turned into a packaging device. That's a little bit different. So I played in all these different industries. But getting to your question, I would highly recommend that you stay in one industry. So you're building relationships with these companies. They know who you are. And once you submit that first product, you build a relationship. And let's say they say no, but you come back with another one, right? And show them that you're going to invest your time with them. If you do that, eventually they're going to invest time with you. They're going to show you what they're really looking for. That makes it easier to hit that target. Now, if you're really smart, find an industry that you're fascinated by and look at a company's product line, study it, and try to imagine what are they going to do next. So you're really targeting your creativity to that particular company, and then build a relationship, keep on submitting ideas. That's an easier way to hit the target if you're studying what they're going to do next.
Yeah, that's why I was going to ask that question, is I would assume that would be the good play there would be to establish those relationships. So you've got relationships with these different companies. So let me ask you a question. You mentioned Disney. I assume that Disney has a huge department of people who are inventing things and different things like that. So is it typically those larger companies where they maybe have a large staff of their own? Are they less inventor friendly?
Well, sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Okay.
Open innovation, it's really kind of an amazing concept. Open innovation means that, hey, I'm going to look outside my walls, that maybe I have these wonderful designers in the back. But if I open my doors for people like me and you and everybody else, I can increase the chances of me finding a great idea. I might have 10 designers in the back, but I could have 10,000 people sending me ideas. So a lot of companies have embraced that, but some of them haven't yet, right? They really want to keep you out. That's okay too. Avoid those companies, but find those companies that have embraced open innovation and they want to work with you. It's a great business model. It is growing in all different industries. I get to see at InventRight products that get licensed in probably 30 to 40 different industries. So it is growing, and it's really kind of exciting because you're knocking on doors of opportunity. It's wonderful.
Well, it's always interesting to me, Stephen, is when I see, some of these inventions that have had, the pet rock back in the, whatever it was, 70s, 80s, more recently, the fidget spinner, those goofy things. And you sit back when you see those and they become ubiquitous, right? They're everywhere. And you're like, gosh, how much money did someone make off of that thing? It's very intriguing.
Well, absolutely. In fact, that's what got me started was Gary Dahl invented the pet rock and he was in my town. And I thought, gee, if he could do it with the pet rock, maybe I could do it too.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, again, guys, we've been talking with Mr. Stephen Key, InventRight.com. Check him out on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Stephen, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a great rest of your week. And don't forget, as always, cash flow is king.
To become part of Mr. Biz Nation, follow him on all social media platforms or never miss a show by going to MrBizRadio.com. If you prefer free video content, visit the Mr. Biz YouTube channel or check out his streaming channel, which is available on 100 plus streaming platforms at MrBizNetwork.com.